Hello everyone, this is Ted Fletcher with FMS Integration. So in our last video we actually showed how you can upload a floor plan image to the Falcon FMS for a visual reference. So now we're just going to go over a few different device types for adding those data points to that graphic. So with the floor map loaded, and I'll click on the hyperlink for the floor map, we can see our floor map image. So we'll go back over to the main screen tab. So from here you'd have to have the admin or a write permission username and password. So you want to come up to configuration, left click, and then we'll come down to inputs. And then on here I'm just going to start with a summary alarm, a dry contact, which would be this channel for one of our air handlers inside the data hall. So I'm just going to left click on this. And as soon as this opens, you'll see down towards the bottom that there is a map label, which I already have filled out, calling out the name of the unit. And then we can see that we have map box size, coordinates, there's a link for graphical mapping, and a test map. So test map is just once you've put something in place, you can click on this and it will pull up and show where that is placed. See, when we do not have anything placed, we need to get started by clicking on this graphical mapping link. So you just left click on that. And you can see here up on the upper left hand quadrant of the drawing we have a label. So you can left click, hold, and then we can just drag this down. Place it. Once it's set in place, you'll see down the bottom left hand side that there's an XY coordinate showing out the pixel location. So then we can click on this input number 9 to submit those changes for our placement, which is there. So you just click on submit. That processes through, and then we can just continue the process. So if I go to the next channel, we can see that this one is a summary alarm input from PDU A1-1. So we just come down to here, left click on the graphical mapping, grab the label for that, drop it over the name on the drawing, go back down to the bottom, click on submit. So that's an example of physical points, whether it's a physically wired sensor, of physical wiring to some dry contacts from the equipment in the field, coming back in. So now that we have those in place, if I click on the test map, we can just see where that label is placed. Nothing to click on to submit, so we can actually just click and close this tab once we've verified. So now if we go back to home, and we'll click on our other tab that we already opened for the floor map. Now we can see our two labels in place, and you can see these are shifted up a little bit. So that's where you can come back in and you can actually play with the placement with dragging and dropping, or you can actually change the pixel location for these label blocks. Another way of adding these label markers to the drawing versus just going through the config is you can actually access them, especially when dealing with protocol type devices, is to actually do it from this screen. So what we do is from the home screen, we'll actually click on the device. So I'm just going to click on STS A1-1, left click, and then we can see all the data points, and we can see on our drawing we don't have a ton of real estate on the drawing to try to put all these data points. So we'll just grab one of the more key ones. So on this one, we can monitor the KW output of that STS. So what I'll do is I'll click on this register configuration. And now we can see that it opened this up into kind of an edit mode. So then if we hover over this data point and left click, it'll bring us to that specific register or channel within the Falcon FMS. So similar type format, if we come down through, we can see our label is the output KW. So here we're going to want to drop this data point. So we're just going to go to graphical mapping, And this one, I'm just going to put it right underneath there. Once it's set in place, click the submit. And then it takes that data point. So then I can either go back to home. We'll do the same thing with the PDU. Register configuration, left click. Go to the PDU KW output, which would be a great point for monitoring IT load. So here we're going to left click. Then we're going to come down to graphical mapping. We're going to grab this. We'll put it right above. Click on submit. So here is where you can actually change the box size if we don't like that placement, or if we wanted to make this a little bit larger. So this will automatically expand and tighten around the text if you leave it set to zeros. So say in this example I wanted to have the width be 90 and the height be 30. Once I update those fields, you just have to click on the Submit Changes. And now we can see that it is much larger. So if we had a larger area we wanted to fill with the green being normal or yellow or red alarm condition, then you'll see that being called out in that area. So then we can easily go back if we don't like that and want to just have it stay tight to the text. Put the zeros back in place, click on Submit Changes, and then next time the screen refreshes, you can see that it adjusted itself back down. The last one that we'll go over and show on this as far as doing placement is, let's say if we wanted to have markers for the actual device itself. You can come down to the Modbus / SNMP / BACnet slave units, left click, and then we'll go to our first unit, which would be our PDU. And on this I'm going to, or actually we'll go to the STS. So when the device screen opens, then we can see as far as the map coordinate being about in the middle. And that's where we can left click on the graphical mapping. We can grab the dot, left click, hold it, drag it to where we want it to represent for that device, release the left click. Once it's in place, you can click on the submit. And there's our marker. So now you can actually go from the marker. I'm going to hold down my control key, left click on it, opens in a new tab over here. But then we can see all those data points that are being collected via the protocol. Close on this. And one of the last things you'll notice when you hover over these labels from the foreground is it doesn't do anything by default. If you want to change that, you can go down to this map link on the left hand side, and here you'll see all the options available. If you want the mouse over to show the units, if you want to show the points, if you want to mouse over physical inputs, those would be the wire being like dry contacts or analog sensors, or do you want it to go directly to the unit? As long as the device is hosting its own web interface for how the communication is coming off from it, then you can use this option to actually go directly to the interface. If you're going through a gateway device in order to talk to the device, this one might not be ideal. So on these, what I'll do is I'll select yes on the units, yes on the points, and yes for the inputs. Click on Submit Changes. Come back to the floor map. I'm going to hold down Shift and F5 just to get it to refresh. But now you can see when I mouse over, we can actually see the full name being called out for that data point. Same with the wired summary alarm input coming down through. We can see that this value represents the output KW. You can see the label name coming off from this. So this just helps give you a little bit more flexibility when working within the system. If you like what you see, hit like. If you want to stay up to date, hit subscribe. By all means, feel free to leave a comment. We understand that not all applications are the same, so if you have any sort of questions, comments based on this video, or any application questions in general, feel free to reach out and contact us at fms-a.com.